Good morning. Well, it's pretty nice out right now. It's not windy. I'm going to do some spraying here this morning. I'll film a little bit of it, but not much because you guys have seen it over and over and over again. Dad did not get his backhoe tire fixed last night, so he's going to go and see about getting a air compressor. Our tile guy's got 185 CFM air compressor that they might let us borrow to do that because we just need more volume of air to get it to seat the bead than what our little portable tanks can carry. So anyway, that's the plan. I'll help him if I need to, and otherwise we're gonna go spray. Go spray. All right, we made it to the field here. There's a pretty good chance it's going to be muddy and we might splash through some water, but the ground should be pretty firm and we won't get stuck. Famous last words. I'll let you know if it happens. Otherwise, I'll see you when we're leaving or wrapping stuff up unless something super interesting happens, but I doubt it. Down to the last field. This is a small one. There's not much here. Not any water in this hole, which surprises me a little bit. All right, we're done. There is 215 gallons left on the tank. I knew I wouldn't use it all down at this group of fields here. So we're gonna catch one that we did part of on the way home and spray it out. All right, I made it to the last field where we're gonna spray this out here. Just wanted to come out and look. I already perimetered this field when I was across the road spraying, and I ran out and then I haven't come back. So I just wanted to look and see what things look like. There's a dead plant, I'll assume white mold. I don't see a ton of it. So what do we got? There's one aphid. That's not very many. I'm sure there's more somewhere. Of course, I might be close enough to the edge where, I mean, got sprayed already and there aren't any here. I'm gonna walk a little farther. Well, there's some more. Okay, I'm back at the farm here. I do have one more load to spray and I would like to go and do that right now, but I told you guys yesterday, remember, I've got an appliance delivery, stuff for the new house, and the window they gave me was 10:30 to 2:30, which is better than 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., but it is 10:30, so I feel like I gotta stick around at least until I get that. So yeah, I should look and see if they're gonna call me or not. Either way, the field that I've got to spray is 10 miles away and will take way too long to get there and back to try and risk it now. We could go over to the tile field though. All right, well, I decided to come over to the tile field here, and we'll see if they're running. We might have to come back this afternoon. I don't know if they're actually moving or not. But we'll talk about this a little bit, and how it all works, and why, and all that. So this machine here is the tile plow, and that's a big one, and it's awesome. Obviously on tracks, big deep lugs on it. It's all about traction here, because you're trying to pull that plow, or that big shank, really deep, and it's pretty wide, and it takes a lot of power and traction to do so. So what Dad is over there digging up right now is the old main, the clay 12-inch main. It's kind of where these white flags are. And then they ran a sub main off of that, an 8-inch tile, the one we worked down yesterday. And then there's another one right here that's a 6-inch tile that curves around and goes along the woods, and they're tapping all of these into it. And we use 4-inch tile for laterals. So all of the main runs, or I shouldn't say the mains, that's the wrong word, but all the tile lines that go through the field are 4-inch. That's what this white stuff is. And they're getting ready to hook one up here. I'll try and show you a little bit. So that plow creates a nice smooth bottom and lays it in there and buries it. So they came in with the shovels and just kind of buried that whole tile to keep it from bubbling up or having any unevenness in it. And then he's just going to keep going. So the roll of tile goes up on the front there. It's on a little unwinder or whatever you want to call it. Feeds it in down through that hole in the boot, and then it's connected and coming out. The tile has slots in it. I don't know if you can see it real well. I'll grab a chunk somewhere and show you, but it's that's how the water gets into it. So he just pulls this up. This is a pretty short run, so it's a good one for showing the whole process here. Once he gets up here close to the end, he'll come out and cut it off and throw a cap in it, and then keep going until that tile is fully out of the boot, and then lift the plow out of the ground. So water flows downhill, right? So it's important to lay this in on what they call a grade. And depending on the slope of the ground, depends on where all the tile lines are going to go and which direction they're going to run and how much slope can be on it and everything. But that big red thing sticking up there that says Trimble on it, that is a laser receiver. And if you look over there by that roll of tile, there's a yellow cart with a laser on it. And there's another one up there by that roll of tile that they are shooting out a laser beam in a straight line. Here he's getting out to cut the end off so that he can cap it. And that big stick up there is basically receiving that line so it knows its elevation relative to those, and it can adjust and make sure that the bottom of the tile is always on a straight line, or not, you know, it's on a grade. So maybe 1/10 of an inch per, or a 10th grade, where it's going to move 1 inch per foot per 10 feet or something. I don't know. I can figure it out, but that's not my job. So there he capped it. Now he's pulling ahead a little bit further to run the rest of that string out. And then he'll lift the plow up out of the ground, the boot. You can see our different soil type color there. And then back up to the next start hole and run the next one. So basically where he just finished there is the highest point on that tile. It's all going to flow downhill back to the main. The main then keeps flowing downhill, or the sub-main flows downhill to the main, which then flows downhill to the river. So that water flows because it's all gravity and stuff. And so depending on the terrain and how the ground lays, you know, the tile is going to get deeper or shallower just depending on how it rolls. And you got to have a minimum amount of cover. We like to have at least 30 inches of cover, or 2 foot at the bare minimum, but 30 inches is good. So that when we're running our tillage equipment and stuff, we don't ever hit that tile and dig it out. So Dad's digging that clay up over here. We'll go see what he's doing. So that white flag there, and then they run up behind the gator over there, designates where this main is that they found. And this was installed in the 60s. It's been there for a very long time. It's old clay tile, but I think it's still in good shape. I guess Dad's going to dig it up and find it, but this ground is very hard. We don't want to break it if we can avoid it. So he's just taking a little bit at a time here. We'll get in there and dig a little bit more with a shovel and try and find this. Delicate digging. Trying to watch behind the teeth for any orange shards, anything. Don't see it. Do a little more hand digging. Well, we found it. Only punched a little hole. So Dad found that main there, and he's got that opened up. He's digging just a big enough trench to get the plow in there. They've got to tile out this little corner here. Zoom out. There we go. And it sounds like they're just going to run a little 4-inch and parallel those white flags, and then put a couple strings in this way. It's not very many acres or very much volume that's going to go through it, so a 4-inch tile is sufficient. There is a whole math calculation way to figure drainage coefficients and stuff to tell you how big of a outlet that you need, or big of a tile you need for the number of acres and the amount of water and how fast you want it to drain and all that. I don't know that information, so but that's how they size them. A lot of it has to do with the number of acres. If you can figure out how many acres you're going to put through it, then you can pretty much figure out how big of a tile you need. There's just a chunk of it sitting here, so I thought I'd show you a little closer detail. You can see the little slots in there. Those are how the water gets into the tile. It is 4-inch diameter, corrugated, makes it flexible, and yeah, that's what we put in the ground. I think that covers the operation of it out here. I mean, they dig a start hole, they back the plow in, they hook the tile up, they plow it in. It's pretty straightforward and simple. As far as layout, like I said, you got to follow the ground contours. You got to make sure you've got grade so that the water is actually going to drain through the tile. Occasionally, when we're putting a main in places, if there's a ridge or a hill in the way, we'll get our dirt pans out and make a big cut so that tile can get in deep enough, because I'm not sure how deep he can go with the plow. I would assume 4, maybe 5 feet. But occasionally, we've put tile in 15 feet deep before if we got to cut through a ridge. So it's all dependent on the situation. We are not perfectly flat here, and so it's not as simple as putting a main on one end of the field and just running all the way across it, because we have slope, which slope is good. It helps you get grade to get it to drain off and cover, but it's not as simple as just laying it all out in a grid. You got tile lines that run on angles and all over the place. As far as the need for drain tile goes, well, Northwest Ohio is one of the epicenters when tile sort of started becoming popular. It was developed more in New York, I think, New York State, back in the early 1800s. But Northwest Ohio was the Great Black Swamp, and drainage tile is how we farm it. Our clay-based soils do not drain, and if we want to get them planted and into them in the spring, you got to put drain tile in. It makes a... Dad always said, when you put drain tile in the farm, you make the worst spot on the farm the best spot on the farm. As far as the spacing for the runs go, that's changed a bit over the years, and it's really whatever you want or whatever you can afford is more realistic. So back when my dad started tiling, I think they put some in on 45-foot centers. In fact, the east side of this, or the west half of this field, is tiled on 45-foot centers. We then moved to 40-foot centers, so every 40 foot there was a string of tile, and that was what they did for a long time until we decided that wasn't good enough and moved to 30-foot. So everything they're putting in now is on 30-foot spacings, and in reality the 40-foot or 45-foot are the worst ones that we did, worst possible, because it costs so much to go in and split them, and then you end up with 20 or 22.5-foot spacings, which isn't bad, but they're closer than they need to be, and it's expensive. So 30-foot is good. If they were put in on 50 or 60 in the original back in the 80s, now we can come in and split those and be on 30, 25 or 30-foot spacings. Those are good as well, but 30 is our standard. There are places south of here in the really heavy lake bed soils that are actually using a 3-inch tile on like 15-inch or 15-foot spacings, or smaller, narrower spacings yet. They just get so expensive to put those in. So The 30-foot 4-inch spacing, or 4-inch tile, 30-foot spacing seems to work really well for us. I am sure that's what the neighbor did across the road here. So this was the last job that the tile guys did. The farmer here, the guy that owns the ground, decided to tile it, which he's farmed this for years and years and years with no tile, and now he finally did. And it'll make all the difference in the world on that farm, but there was basically nothing there to speak of, so they just went in and pattern tiled the entire thing. There is a county main that crosses the road here and goes through his low ground that they were able to hook into and get a good outlet. But yeah, that's quite a drain tile installation job there, where they put a lot of them in. As far as the cost goes, cost has changed quite a bit over the years. It gets more and more expensive all the time. With the increase in costs over the last year from plastics and resins and stuff, the tile prices jumped dramatically since we bought ours. All that tile over there, we bought it back in February or March, and I think we paid like 33 cents a foot for the 4-inch tile. I heard a couple weeks ago it was up to 48 cents a foot, so it's up 30% in 6 months. For a cost of a project like that, if you are pattern tiling 30-foot spacings like that, I would estimate, purely a guess, you're probably going to spend close to $1,500 an acre for that drain tile. It is not a cheap thing to do. But our experience, like I said, it makes the worst place in the field the best place in the field, and it could be 30, 50 bushel increase in corn yields in any given year. Depends on the year and the field conditions. The biggest advantage is in the spring. We can get on those fields a lot faster and get them planted more timely, reduces compaction, all kinds of advantages to having dry fields in the spring. Now, I also know that drain tile can be a controversial issue in some areas. It seems some areas of the country more than others. It's not really something we hear people complain about around here too much. I think that's because people know how necessary it is for our farm ground and for the area in general. It's not just farmers that are putting in drain tile, right? There's drain tile around every single house that goes in. Around here, I assume that's standard everywhere, but around here you wouldn't think about putting a house up without a drain around your foundation to get rid of all the excess water. And you know, golf courses are using tile drainage, and pretty much if you want to use a piece of ground for something other than a swamp, you're going to tile it. But I know in Minnesota especially, it's a hot button issue, and I know like in Nebraska or Kansas, you guys have never even seen drain tile. So it's all very dependent on your soil types and your rainfall conditions. You know, we're in the Eastern Corn Belt. We get more rain than they do in the Western Corn Belt every single year. So we have more water, and we need to get rid of it at times of the year. But let's talk about how it works a little bit more, because I think it's a tough thing for some people to understand. So when we put drain tile in, we are not trying to get all of the moisture out of the ground. We are not completely trying to drain it. We're only trying to drain the excess moisture and water that is in the soil profile. And so what that means is you know, our soils can naturally hold on to water. It's surface tension of the water. It binds to the particles in some of the pore space in that soil, and it's held naturally in suspension, I guess, or within the soil profile. And so what happens when you have a big rainfall event is you have excess water, more than what that soil can hold. And so it either is going to run off the top of the soil surface, or it's going to pond in that soil, or it's going to fill all of the airspace that we want in that soil. So the ideal soil composition is for it to be 50% particulates, and that can be anything, you know, organic matter or your sand, silt, clay particles, living creatures, whatever, all that kind of stuff. You want it to be about 50%, I guess solid matter may be a more appropriate term there. And then you want 25% airspace and 25% water in that perfect soil mixture. When that airspace gets completely saturated with excess water, that's where we run into issues, and we need to get rid of some of that. And so what happens is that that water is no longer being bound by the soil. It's being constricted from running deeper because of the clay. The soil particles are too close together for the water to move through it freely. And so it sits there and it ponds and it creates a wet environment and it's saturated. By putting that drain tile in there, what happens is that the excess water that can't be held by the soil enters into the tile through those little slits in it that we showed, and then that gives it a channel to get off of the field and into the streams and ditches and rivers and to flow into the where the natural drainage goes. And so while there's a perception that drain tile is taking all this rainwater and this excess runoff off of the fields and sending it straight down the river, that's not exactly how it works. But we're only taking the excess beyond what the soil can hold. And by draining it more slowly over time through the field tile, it actually makes that soil into more of a sponge. So the next time we get a big rain, there's somewhere for it to go instead of all just running off the soil surface. Okay, that was a very long explanation on something that is somewhat complicated, but shouldn't be that hard. If you have questions, leave them down below. I'll try and answer them. I am not the expert on this. It's not my job. It's not what I do. There are other people that know much more about it. You can probably Google it and find the information out yourself. But bottom line is, we need tile to make our fields more productive and to do a better job of raising crops and caring for the environment all at the same time. My delivery truck's here. Well, there's a wall oven in there. We're doing all right on the appliances, I guess. Still waiting on a dishwasher and cooktop that were ordered Memorial Day. It said maybe in September, so I'm glad we ordered stuff plenty early. All right, well, since I didn't have to stick around and wait on the delivery people anymore, I went and sprayed that last load of insecticide that we had. So that is done. And then I decided to come out here to the barn and work on my little flooring sample a little more. You want to see it? Yeah. So I put the framing together, the eye joists and the end board, the rim boards here. And then we cut some floor plank and put down on there. I tried to pick the crappy boards and not waste the good ones on this. So that's why we've got, this giant knot here and some blemishes, which there are going to be some in the floor, and some of them are okay. But this one's got some crack in it that I don't know. But I need to get it sanded real nice and smooth. It's not bad, but we'll sand it down a little bit, and then probably take some individual boards and test our stains again a little bit more, narrow it down to 2 or 4, and then we can quarter this off and put some on, and then put the finish over all of it, the urethane, and pick one. I'm sure I can find something to do with that. A step, something, it's useful. Okay, I was going to take the drone over to the tile field, but I don't have a battery charged up enough to do anything with, so I'll run over, see what kind of progress they made today. Well, they're still moving. They've got this back side here all, yeah. That spot where Dad was digging up over here this morning, they figured out once they opened that clay up to tap into it, there was a bunch of tree roots in the tile, and so they ended up digging a big section of it out, replaced it with some plastic dual wall, and put a standpipe in right here on the property line. So we fixed that, I guess. Got some of the tree roots out of it. That's the problem with trees, is they put that tile in 60 years ago, and then the trees grew up on the fence row here, and they plugged the tile up, so it didn't work very good. Dad still peeling them back. I don't believe that he's going to let that log go to waste. There's just no way. Unless there's metal in it. They got a couple of start holes they're working on digging. I think they're short a little help here Friday afternoon. But you can see our soil profile here pretty well. Kinda. Got actually more topsoil here than most places. There's probably 15 inches there. And then it turns to that yellow clay. yellow, brown. This is some of the nice dirt, but we're in the low ground. All right, I'm going home. Back to the farm first. All right, thanks for watching this week. Questions and comments, leave them down below. There's a slight possibility I may try and squeeze a live stream in sometime this weekend. Haven't done one for a while. I enjoy them. Haven't done it, so maybe I might try. I don't know what's going on this weekend. We'll see. But thanks for watching, like I said, and we'll see you guys Monday.